Welcome back for another Sunday Skirmish. I'm 5C, also known as Scotty, your host for today's game. We have a spicy selection of decks here today, so let's get to it, and welcome our fighters. First off, we have Dark Jester playing a Golgari list led by Smeagol, Helpful Guide. This deck aims to sacrifice its creatures, gain incremental value with ring temptations, and cast huge green and black spells to finish their opponents. Second, we have Ashley, piloting the new Alela, Cunning Conqueror. This Dimir control list seeks to get in for combat damage with its flyers, goading their opponent's creatures. Controlling the board on opponents' turns creates more evasive creatures that can eventually fly in for victory. Next we have myself, unleashing the new Korvold, Gleeful Glutton. This Jund beatdown list puts out loads of permanents that sacrifice themselves for mana to reduce the cost of my commander, which is a win con and draw engine in itself. Once cast, the rest of my deck uses protection spells to keep my insatiable beast from leaving the battlefield. Finally, we have Brian on Ognis, the Dragon Slash. This is a hasty Artifact Matters list that seeks to inflict pain with fast and powerful creatures to create more treasure tokens. Brian's also looking to close out the game with scary green and black spells and by using effects from cards like Disciple of the Vault and Marionette Master. With that being said, please like and subscribe, and let's get into tonight's game. Dark Jester is on the play and starts with a tapped land, and passes. Ashley draws and plays a Bojuka Bog, exiling his own graveyard, and passes. We begin with a draw, playing an Exotic Orchard, and then casting a Soul Ring, and then passing. Brian plays a Mountain, and then passes. Dark Jester draws, plays a Swamp, and casts a Sakura Tribe Elder, and then passes. Ashley untaps, draws, and plays a Dimir Aqueduct, bouncing its Bojuka Bog back to hand, and then discarding to hand size, passing. We draw, play a Forest, and cast a Reckless Barbarian. And then, with the floating mana, we cast a Shadow Spear. And then we pass. Brian draws, plays a Mountain, and then passes. Dark Jester draws, and casts his commander, Smeagol, Helpful Guide. He then sacrifices Sakura Tribe Elder, getting a land, and he moves to end step. The ring tempts him, and he chooses Ashley to mill until he hits a land. Ashley mills a command tower, and Dark Jester puts it onto the battlefield tapped. Then he passes. Ashley draws and replays his Bojuka Bog, exiling Dark's graveyard, then passing. We draw, play, and crack a Wooded Foothills, searching for a Blood Crypt that comes into play untapped. We sacrifice Reckless Barbarian for 2 red. Having sacrificed 2 permanent types for a 2 mana discount, we tap out to cast our 8 mana commander, Korvold, on turn 3. Now that we're in combat, we get to bash in with a hasty 4/4 towards Dark Jester. Damage trigger, we draw a card and put a counter for each permanent type in our graveyard. So far, that's 2. And then we pass. Brian draws, plays a Forest, cursing his deck for the lack of black mana, and passes. Dark draws, plays a land, and casts Mirror Guardian. He casts Altar of Dementia. He sacrifices Mirror Guardian, choosing to mill Ashley 4 from the altar trigger. When Mirror Guardian dies, the ring tempts him, and he'll also choose to mill Brian until he hits a land. Brian will mill until he hits a Reliquary Tower, give that to Dark Jester, and when Dark Jester moves to his end step, the ring will tempt him yet again because a creature died. He will choose Ashley, who will mill until he hits a swamp, and then he will finally pass to Ashley. Ashley stops on Dark's end step to flash in Obira, Dreaming Duelist. Then he untaps, plays an Exotic Orchard, and casts his commander, Alela, Cunning Conqueror. He moves to combat and sends Obira at us, goading Korvold as Obira connects. He passes to us. We draw and play an Urza Saga as land for turn. We tap 2 to cast a Seal of Primordium. Then we're going to move to combat and send Korvold towards Brian. After bashing in for 6, we sacrifice the Seal of Primordium in response to the damage trigger to blow up the Altar of Dementia. Korvold's trigger resolves, Korvold gets 3 counters, and we draw 3 cards. In our second main phase, we cast an Awakening Zone before passing to Brian. Brian draws, plays a Mountain, and reminds us that he doesn't need black mana for Ognis. After casting the Maraschino Warrior, he moves to combat and sends 3 damage our way. We take it, Brian makes a tapped treasure, and passes to Dark. Dark draws and casts Claim the Precious, targeting Korvold, killing him. The ring tempts Dark for yet another mill trigger directed towards Brian. Brian gives him a Wooded Foothills, and then Dark moves to combat, swinging Smeagol our way. We take it, Dark casts an Elvish Mystic, and passes. Ashley draws and moves straight to combat, swinging Elvira at Brian and Alela at Dark. He connects with both creatures and goads Ognis and Smeagol. We make a spawn on our upkeep from Awakening Zone, draw for turn, uptick Urza's Saga, and cast a Zuran Orb. We play a Crystal Vein as land for turn. We do some not-so-quick math, and eventually recast Korvold, sacrificing the Eldrazi spawn and the Crystal Vein for a discount. Still unfortunately one short of equipping our Shadow Spear, we move to combat and swing Korvold Dark's way. He connects, we draw 3 and get 3 more counters on Korvold and pass to Brian, discarding to hand size. Brian draws for turn and casts a Reaver Cleaver, which Ashley decides he doesn't like, and casts a Fierce Guardianship targeting the Reaver Cleaver. Brian moves to combat and swings Ognis at Dark for 3, making a treasure token, and passing to Dark. Dark draws for turn, plays a land, and moves right into combat. He swings 4 at me. I take it, and the Ring Bearer triggers. Brian draws and discards, and we each take 3 more. Dark Jester passes. Ashley casts a Brainstorm on Dark's end step, making a fairy, triggering Elvira, and draining the table for 1. After drawing 3 cards and putting 2 back on top, he untaps and draws for turn. Ashley moves to combat and swings a total of 2 power at each of his opponents. We take it, and he goads Korvold, Ognis, and Smeagol. We draw, upticking and sacrificing Urza's Saga after floating a mana, putting an artifact land, Tree of Tales, onto the battlefield. We then play an Urborg as land for turn, and equip the Shadow Spear to our Korvold. We warily put Karlach, Fury of Avernus on the stack, but as suspected, Ashley's got an Arcane Denial. We're going to try to protect it with a Veil of Summer here, but unfortunately, Ashley has an offer we can't refuse. We make 2 treasures, Karlach is countered, and we move to combat. After swinging an 8/8 at Brian, we connect and get another 3 cards and counters, also gaining 8 life this time. We pass to Brian. On Brian's upkeep, Ashley draws 1 and we draw 2 from Arcane Denial. Brian casts Read the Bones. He casts Urabrask's Forge. Brian moves to combat, making a 1/1 with haste. He swings Ognis towards us and the token at Dark. We take 3, and Brian makes 2 top treasures and passes to Dark. Dark draws and plays a Dark Ritual. He casts Ashnod's Altar. He casts Avenger of Zendikar. Brian responds to Avenger with a Nature's Claim, targeting Ashnod's Altar. Dark begrudgingly responds by sacrificing his elf to Ashnod's Altar for 2 colorless, ensuring a Smeagol trigger. He casts Vona's Hunger in response still, crippling both the board and my Korvold yet again. Then Nature's Claim finally resolves, blowing up Dark's altar. Avenger of Zendikar finally resolves. Dark makes 9 plant tokens. Dark Jester goes to combat and attacks us for 4 with Smeagol. And we only take 3 damage here by accident. It doesn't end up mattering this time, I promise. Dark passes, and on his end step, the ring tempts him and he finally chooses us to mill, and he gets a Spire Garden off the top. Ashley draws and moves straight to combat, sending 2 at Dark, goading the Avenger of Zendikar. He passes to us. We make a spawn on upkeep, draw, and immediately slam a Crux of Fate, naming all non-dragons. Ashley responds with an Unsubstantiate, returning Alela to his hand. Alela goes back to hand, and the board is wiped clean. We cast a Patriarch's Seal. We cast a Seal of Fire. We pass to Brian, hoping to live another turn. Brian draws and, seeing no other great options, casts an Exsanguinate where X is 5, draining the table and gaining 15. He moves to combat, and Urabrask's Forge makes a 2/1 with haste, which attacks Ashley. He takes it, and Brian passes to Dark Jester. Dark draws, plays a forest, and sees a similar opportunity. He also casts Exsanguinate, but this time X is 9. With lethal on the stack, we are forced to sacrifice 3 lands to our Zuran Orb, which, after the missed damage, puts us at 1 life, and Dark to 44. Dark passes to Ashley, who is struggling on mana. He draws, plays a tapped land, and passes it back to us. We make a spawn on our upkeep, draw, play a Prismatic Vista that taps for black with Urborg, tap completely out, sacrificing the spawn for colorless, our 2 treasures, our prismatic vesta to the Zurin orb for 2 life, and even the seal of fire. That'll shoot Ashley in the face, I think, and that'll give us a 4 mana discount on Korvold. This left us exactly 2 mana to re-equip the Shadow Spear onto Korvold. We move to combat and swing 5 more Commander at Dark. He takes it, and we get 4 counters on Korvold, 4 cards, as well as 5 precious life. Ashley stops us on our end step to flash in a Fairy Harbinger. On ETB, Ashley searches up Italian, Kindly Lord, and puts it on top of his library. Brian draws and moves right to combat. He makes a 3-1 with Urabrask's Forge and attacks Dark with it. Dark takes it, and in Brian's second main phase, he casts a Sad Return to the Wildspeaker, drawing 3 cards. He plays a command tower for turn and passes to Dark. Dark draws, recasts Smeagol, Helpful Guide, and passes to Ashley. Ashley, who very badly wants to refill his hand with control cards, but also very badly wants to goad Korvold, draws, and reluctantly casts Alela from his hand. He moves to combat and attacks us with the Harbinger for 2. We take it. Korvold is goaded, and Ashley passes the turn to us. We make a spawn, draw, and move straight to combat. We claim our first victim by swinging in at Dark Jester for 9 commander. He takes it, we draw 4, get 4 counters on Korvold, and gain 9 life. We pass to Brian, discarding to hand size. A Sylvan Safekeeper, a Culling Ritual, Haywire Might, a Crop Rotation. We're going to give up on the Reliquary Dream. Brian draws and casts a Reckless Fireweaver. He moves to combat and makes a 4-1 with haste. He was not paying attention when I read Patriarch's Seal to him earlier, and after he attacks me, I untap Korvold with Patriarch's Seal to declare blockers. In response to blockers, Brian casts a Beast Within, targeting Korvold. Turns out, I'm tired of having Korvold die, so I'm going to respond by flashing in a Mithril Coat, having it enter and attach itself to Korvold. We block, gain 13 life, and Brian dejectedly passes to Ashley. Ashley draws and casts Talion, the Kindly Lord, naming 4. He moves to his end step, and we hold priority by casting a Dark Ritual. Using the 3 black, we add a green to cast a Kicked Tear Asunder, exiling Alela to prevent any more flyers from entering. Alela is sent back to the command zone, and we go to untap. We draw and move straight to combat. We send our 13/13 commander towards Ashley. Ashley attempts to kindly cast the adventure side of Horn-Locked Whale, bouncing Korvold back to my hand. But to say we have been able to dig through our deck early and often has been an understatement. We respond by giving our king the royal treatment, putting a royal roll token on him. Ashley takes 14 now, going to 1. We get counters, draw cards, and gain a bunch of life, and pass to Brian. Both Brian and Ashley quickly play through their turn to see if they have an answer, declare that they can't, and concede the match. Wow, that match was really down to the wire. Thanks to everyone who made it all the way to the end. These unique interactions are why I like to showcase games, to show that 1 life is all you need to obtain a victory. Today's card of the game goes to Exsanguinate. This uncapped kill spell heavily swings games in the caster's favor after just a few turns of combat damage trades. Life is a resource, they say, but many red and black spells would like to say otherwise. If you want to get a hold of my Korvold deck list, it will be linked down below. Until next time, stay colorful.